Welcome to Galactic Grandmother, Heart to Heart. My name is April, and my special guest today is IREN. IREN was born in Russia. She lived in Bulgaria, the United States, before returning to Russia to get her medical degree. She has had experiences with MILAB abductions as a child. She was in the secret space program, otherwise referred to as the SSP, and she has a great remembrance of her spiritual journey as a soul, which I'm very interested in. And since extracting herself from the SSP, she has been, for the last few years, educating people in the disclosure movement about the SSP. So, welcome, Irene. Am I saying that right?
Yes, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure. And then how did you get connected with the Galactic Federation?
They were the ones that actually got me out of Orion. They came into my dreams and they basically seeded questions and kind of woke me up. The same thing I'm doing now for humanity and
Mhm.
I was doing in the SSP. They did the same thing for me, but they couldn't come in physically, so they came into my dreams and they kept waking me up. And I kept allowing them to come into my dreams. I didn't block them off. And eventually I started questioning reality, even with, Orion and Draco, they actually have exactly the same system. They also have that mind wipe, that intense control, that hierarchy thing that the SSB has. The SSB basically they took what aliens are already using, they took it here and they used exactly the same principles. It's not anything different. So I've already dealt with this on an alien level. So I was already familiar with the system
Mhm.
when I went to the SSP. I think the reason they chose me was because I was already questioning reality even in the previous universe before I even came here. Because at some point, I actually didn't want to fight, and I actually started to let myself get killed in the battlefield. Every time I would incarnate, I would just let myself get killed. And eventually, the universe, the reality there decided that I don't want to have anything to do with war and participate in that collective consciousness drama that they've created. And it kind of spit me out with all these other beings that came as refugees into this reality. The fact that I ended up coming into this reality was not a coincidence. Even the beings that carried over the turmoil with them, it didn't just happen. They had to do something. There had to be some kind of shift in their consciousness for the universe to be like, okay, you don't belong here, and to create that timeline, that reality for them where they align with a ship, with a body that's going to be traveling to another universe, where they align with these circumstances where they can leave. So things don't just happen just randomly. A consciousness has to get to that point where things align for them to end up doing something else.
And
So I was already doing that.
and do you see now that Earth and and all beings on Earth now are being getting ready for some kind of jump in our consciousness evolution? Talk about
Yes,
that.
right now, of course, there's a lot of things that are very pissed off because they've seen Earth being reset over and over again every time you've gone through this kind of process where you were right about to shift into a higher dimension
Mhm.
and they wiped the planet clean. You could see that with Titarian, Babylon, and all the other civilizations before that were taken out. So that has happened before. You've been to this point of evolution before, and you were reset basically. Your planet has been reset, and not just your planet, this whole solar system has been through this before. Because Earth is not the only one that goes through cycles of ascension. Other planets also start to wake up at some point too. But yeah, that's how they control. They reset whenever they start losing control. They reset. But this time, I think there's so many beings that are so pissed, and there's just so many beings that are helping. There's a lot of more beings watching. Now you're kind of like the gossip of this universe. Like look at that little planet over there. Look at them. Before it was like, oh, they got reset again, and now they're like, yes, they must make it this time. So there's a lot more attention on you, a lot more gossip, and we're hoping that this time you will make it. Of course, there will be some souls that are going to end up in a timeline where things are just going to keep going worse and worse and worse for them. Not all of them are have shifted enough of their consciousness and perspective on reality to be able to be in a timeline where they're happy and prosperous and where everything just goes in a positive direction and they become fifth dimensional and they have access to information that they didn't have access to, unlimited information, because then they will have telepathy. With telepathy, become basically you're open to unlimited information because the entire creation is opening up to you. You can connect to anything in creation. So basically, that's going to be the end of control because they can only control you as long as they can limit information. We're hoping that this time you're going to make it, most of you are going to make it, and maybe there's going to be like a small portion that are going to end up in another timeline. Most of you, we're hoping that are going to wake up enough, shift consciousness enough so that you end up exiting that cycle of being killed off every single time you start awakening. I've noticed there's a lot of souls actually here right now that don't remember it but are traumatized of that. There's some souls that are traumatized of being prosecuted during the witch hunts, the asylums and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So there's some souls that are actually afraid of waking up because of that, because they've done it before and they've been hurt by it. And there's also some souls that have been through this and they, on some level, remember their reset. So they kind of have given up. They're kind of in a state of, oh, well, I've been through this before and nothing worked out. Why should I even bother learning now or waking up or trying to exit the system? Maybe I should just be asleep and just be an NPC and not really bother with this because I'm gonna get killed anyways. So there's also those souls that are gonna have harder time because they've been traumatized from previous times. These souls kind of worry me a little bit because they're vibrationally they're on that verge, but then because of old setbacks, they're gonna have harder time waking up now. And then there's some that are completely asleep that is like they know hope. Like they're just gonna be no matter how much proof you give them, they're just gonna be asleep.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have to figure things out in another timeline where things are gonna be much harder. Most likely their timeline is gonna look like something that I went through in the SSP, where they're going to be constantly mind wiped by Elon Musk's Neuralink, and they're going to be trying to remember what happened yesterday, or every time they think of anything they start questioning reality or think about anything that's out of the controller's narrative, they're they're just going to lose that train of thought, and they're just going to be like, oh, what was I thinking about just right now? I don't remember. Oh
Yeah.
well, I guess I'm just gonna go out through life as an NPC because that's the only thing I know. So life is gonna get harder for them because they're choosing that path to be ignorant. And the more ignorant they are, the more reality is gonna enforce more ignorance on them. It's gonna be harder for them to get out of that ignorance.
Now, is the Galactic Federation or other of our star families going to show their ships to help this global awakening? See
Some
that?
point, yes, they will, but they will be careful of who they select to show themselves to, from what I understood. And there's also something very interesting that I learned about recently that positive ETs told me. Like higher dimension was like ninth or maybe eighth or ninth dimension, somewhere from there, it feels like. Because they didn't have a body, they were like glowing light kind of beings
Mhm.
that looked like that to me. And they said that because I was thinking like I really want humanity to be awake today to understanding that they're being trafficked off world and for them to understand that they're not being taken physically, they're being taken on a soul level. So the most important thing on this planet is actually a human soul. That's what they take to use for different reasons. And I was thinking, like, I really would like for people to know this so they monitor their dream states and they create energetic shields around them so they can't be extracted. They cut off any, so they create like these tethers. Like I've seen actually my tether that was used in the secret
Oh,
space program.
but who's creating this? Those higher consciousness beings?
So the tethers they create are connected to AIs, higher dimensional AI, like quantum AIs that can control the astral. And these AIs create like energetic tether to the etheric body, and then they yank the person out and put them
Oh,
in a new
so this
body.
is negative then.
Yeah, this is the AIs that the SSP is using.
Okay.
And then they yank the person out and they can put them in like construct like a it's kind of like an astral reality for them to be in for a short time, and then they can put them into a body. But that feather most people don't know they have it, and if they at least can tune in to, for me it was like connected like a black, it was like a black string connected to my my heart, and it was like going out and it was connected to an AI. And that was the link that they used whenever I would die in combat. They would yank me out through that energetic link and pull me in. The AI would pull me into a construct and then put me into a new body this way. So it's the same thing for anyone who's being used off world for other reasons, not just combat. Like they use people for just some people just even just life force. They get taken and they get used just for life force. Some people get used for construction off world. Some get used as scientists. Some there's like anything they can think of. They can yank a person out and and if people at least know to cut that cord or to dissolve it, of course the AI can reattach that cord again. But if you keep dissolving it, keep cutting it, keep interfering with that process, keep putting shield around yourself, keep saying affirmations before you go to sleep of I do not consent, I don't want to be taken. So the higher dimensional beings can know what you want, so they can also interfere as well. So the more you know about these things, the harder it is for them to continue with their slave agenda. And I wanted people to know that like worldwide. And they said that right now it's too early to do that. First, the SSP needs to wake up and heal, and then civilians can wake up on that level. If we wake up civilians on that level and the secret space program is not awake yet, they're just going to wipe them out. They're just going to kill them off and reset. So we need to first work on the secret space program because they hold the weapons and they're still, a lot of them are highly asleep as well. And then when they wake up at a certain point, then we can wake up the civilians more. So there has to be a process to make it safe for civilians to wake up. So there's certain information that's not given, and certain ETs are not coming yet simply because it's not safe for humanity, because they don't want humanity to get reset because of that.
How long could this go on? I mean, before the SSP loses their power over humanity.
They're already losing their power and they're already waking up very quickly, and they're in the fourth dimension. So, which is interesting because something that takes me years to process, like for example, when I was processing rage from these programs, which is something that they used for combat, so I
Mhm.
would be very efficient at combat. They created a lot of rage in me. It's a potent energy to be a good warrior. For example, that took me many years. And then I'm talking to some like SSP, ex-SSP, and still in the program's SSP. And I'm like talking to them about like them processing things. And something that would took me like years to process in the 3D, for some reason it takes them months to process it because they're in a higher dimensional reality. So it looks like they're like be lighter, like their body is lighter, so it it shifts faster, the energy field shifts faster than mine. I don't really know why, but for some reason it actually takes them less time to process what it took me longer in the 3D. So they're actually going through the process much faster than we went through when we were going through shadow work in the 3D. And they're actually going to complete the process much faster too. But it's going to take them time though. We're going to have to give them years before they figure it out so that it definitely is 100% safe for civilians to reach higher levels and not be in danger of agents coming after them selectively, like how all of these scientists and David Wilcock, I don't even know if he really died himself or somebody did something to him, you know. It's a very big possibility that there might have been agents that came after him and the official is that he killed himself because I was one of those agents that did this kind of work, so I know how it works when people start talking too much, they go after them. So yeah, that's why these aliens are very careful who they contact on an individual level and also on a collective level because they don't want anyone to get hurt or die because of them. So there's also that part of reality we need to be aware of that things are not so simple as just them landing here. And they also are putting themselves in danger because SSP is they're in the fourth dimension. The Galactic Federation is third, fourth, and fifth in higher dimensions. But mostly the military is like third, fourth, and fifth dimension. And they are like fifth dimension is more advanced than the SSP, but the third and fourth dimension are actually on the same level technologically as the SSP. So these aliens, when they come, some of them are technologically advanced to not be in danger, but then some of them are actually putting themselves in danger. And you know, when they get caught, very bad things happen to them. They get split, some of them get used, some of them get used for energy luge, some of them become actual agents, actual operatives get brainwashed and get used for war. So also aliens don't want to put themselves in danger.
If we have, if we're heading towards a higher consciousness, fifth dimensional timeline, how does that work with? Do we have to wait for the SSP to catch up and change over and learn their lessons? Or it seems like there's a conflict there.
Yeah, you're gonna have to wait for them to catch up. Otherwise, they're gonna reset the planet again. You're gonna have to not only wait for them, but also for Orion and Draco, who are waking up right now as well.
Because,
Because they're all interconnected.
I mean, there's so many souls that have come in to anchor in the higher energies onto the planet, onto the crystalline grid, and to assist other souls to wake up and go within, do the healing. That seems to be a big push right now, is for people
Yeah,
waking up.
yeah, there is a lot of people waking up right now. There's actually a lot of teachers starting to leave right now as well, who have completed their soul contract already at teaching, because we're starting to kind of converge into two different timelines now. It's kind of starting to be less of a teaching in at this point and more of like different souls choosing their reality. So we're getting to that. The SSP will catch up to us very quickly. They are behind us right now, but because they're dimensionally higher, they're going to catch up very quickly to us. So it's not going to be like a long time. Also, the Orion Draco as well. Their reality work shifts much faster, and also their time is very different. It's very interesting. When I would contact them within a day, like I would contact them the next day, for them, it already has been a week. So their time is very different. It runs very different than our time. So whatever time we are going through things, they're going through much bigger time of that. So it's kind of condenses. So that's why also they end up figuring things out quicker than we do. But they will catch up very quickly, very soon. And once it is safe for these beings to land and interact with people, I think at the beginning they're just going to be more interacting with people who are already ready for that. It's going to be more and more and more of that contact, and people are going to be talking more and more that they've just had visits But aliens, I don't think they're just gonna land right away, like in front of everyone. But then as people keep talking more about it and just there's more and more gossip about this kind of topics, they're gonna start to land into bigger and bigger groups of people and until eventually they show themselves to everyone. But it's gonna be like a step by step process. It's not gonna be just like because I think some people who are either resisting them or brainwashed by the system that they're negative or dangerous. They don't really want to be seen as negative or dangerous, and I don't want that to spread into humanity, that kind of idea, because they don't want to end up being, what is it called, enemies to humanity. They don't want humanity to go into that mental direction. So they're gonna try to make this into as many small steps as possible so that gets used to them and is on the same page before they really introduce themselves to like the ones that are the most into the fear mentality vibration.
I could just talk to you all day long and ask you
I know,
questions.
me
You are
too.
just, you're so interesting and you have so much good information. I'll just ask you one more question if you don't mind. When we talk about two timelines, splitting between a lower frequency and a higher frequency, is the higher, say, fifth dimensional and above frequency Earth? Is that an actual another Earth and a higher frequency? How is that? How do you see that timeline split happening?
Well, from what I understood about this, is yes, we're creating another Earth, a fifth dimensional Earth, and then we're just gonna end up inhabiting it with our frequency. But we're not gonna really see. It's not like we're just gonna like all of a sudden appear and everything is different. Everything is gonna be the same, but all of a sudden things just go in our way. Like reality just shifts in a positive direction. Like all the problems that we're seeing right now all of a sudden resolve themselves for a known reason. People like the leaders all of a sudden become positive and we don't even know why. It just things just worked out. And the scarcity of resources that they're artificially creating all of a sudden is gonna disappear and everybody's gonna have enough resources and not have to do something they don't want to do to get basic necessities like food and housing and clothes and stuff like that. Because right now it's all made artificially to create that competitive frequency of me versus them, take, take, take. So they're trying to create that mentality in humans that they have, creating that scarcity artificially. But when consciousnesses choose positive timeline, you become vibrationally high enough and compatible with that, is things are just gonna go in a positive direction. They won't know why. They're just kind of gonna work out somehow. And then the other ones that are still resisting asleep and they just are in drama and just like the drama and just want to stay there and they don't want to do the work of healing and doing clearing out energy, shadow work, and there's like so many modalities to heal Kundalini, and like I've heard so many people speak different ways of doing this kind of stuff. Those the ones that are not don't want to do any work, they don't want to learn anything, they just want to stay in that machine kind of world, like industrial kind of robotic kind of I'm just a robot, I'm just here doing a function. Nothing important. I don't really create anything. I don't bring anything. I just work. They're gonna end up in that kind of reality. Very synthetic, very industrial, very heavily controlled. Media is gonna become more controlled. Governments are gonna become more controlled until their minds become controlled, and that's when it's really gonna become hard for them to break out of that reality. So the more the negative they into a negative reality they go into, the harder it is to get out. It always is like that. It's anywhere in creation. It doesn't matter this planet, anywhere in the universe. The darker you go, the harder it is to get out. The lighter you go, the harder it is to go into darkness. So it that polarity is just kind of makes it harder to go crash or to rise. So you kind of have to figure things out before you really hit rock bottom. Because once you do, it gets hard.
Yeah, I see this right now, all this polarity, and I see that there's so many people that are souls here that are really working towards healing and raising the energetic vibration, so, or frequency, I should say. I don't think we have to worry about too many people waking up at this point to cause a reset because it seems like the majority are still not awake to that point yet, to where that would be a problem for the
Yeah,
SSP.
it also depends on like these people that are not awake, they're just gonna disappear from this reality somehow. They're either gonna die from illness or from like something in their body is gonna go wrong, and they're just gonna it might not be like a government made thing. It might just be their body just falls apart and they just die, or they might just disappear all of a sudden from this reality, you know, just disappeared, and nobody knows where that person went. So people are gonna be leaving. The ones that are not in the same timeline as you are, they're going to be leaving this timeline. But I think people, even people that are just listening and wanting to learn about higher dimensional quantum type of understanding of reality, they're the ones that are already raising their vibration, even if they don't do healing, they just want to learn something that's beyond their reality, that's already raising their vibration. But yeah, the biggest difference I've noticed between this 3D and higher dimensions is the ability to control reality. And I think that's going to be like the main factor between people who are going to end up in that timeline and in this timeline is the understanding that you create reality and you can mold reality and you can choose reality. And then those people who just get tossed around by reality and then they're sad because they're getting tossed around by reality, then they don't know how to control reality and manifest what they want and go into the direction they want. And they're just kind of like in a washing machine, their whole life just being tossed around. And they don't even want to learn how to take control of their manifestation, their hologram. They're just, or they're waiting for someone to save them, which is what
Mhm,
religions tend to do, which is
mhm,
part of the control matrix as well, which is interesting because other colonies have actually have been an agent where I've went to and done psyops on other colonies, like making people believe that somebody's gonna come and save them.
mhm,
I've done that as a psyops, pretending to be light and love. That was actually some of my missions there. So some of them, the ones that are light and love, can actually be secret space program agents that we get like a energetic overlay to make us feel like we're very loving and kind and attractive to people, and we get like a script. We know psyop really well, we know mind control really well, and we go out there and we make sure that the matrix is functioning the way it should be. Of course, that's not a very positive thing to say, but it is what it is. That's what I was used to, and I'm being honest about it. So the reason I'm being honest is because I want people to avoid it. So they
right.
don't get caught.
And
Because from personal experience, I can tell you this is done. So yeah, those the ones that are waiting for savior and the ones that are just being tossed around like a washing machine, like in a washing machine the whole life, they're gonna really have a hard time creating something positive. They're gonna hit rock bottom. And the ones that are trying to get something better and they're realizing they're in a hologram and this hologram is completely controlled by them, those are the ones that are gonna be able to go into higher dimensions because they understand that they can create a higher dimension and they can live in that higher dimension. So there's that unconscious living and then there's conscious living. And that's actually going to be, I think, the biggest separation
oh,
between the two people.
That makes so much sense. And if you're consciously living and creating your reality, then are you safe from being under control or being affected by the SSP?
Yeah, of course. That is actually what I've been teaching people on my channel. I've been basically dissecting all my dreams and all of my, every time they attack me, every time they try to manipulate my mind or trigger old programming, I'm like out there telling about it. The reason I do that is because I want people to notice these subtle changes in personality, subtle changes in thought, subtle changes in emotional states, and these changes might not be there. And that's how these programs, they not only us, they don't only try to control former operatives. They do that with all civilians that just get out of script. They would like influence subtly or through the dreams. They would influence people through the dreams. And I want people to notice these subtle changes because they're kind of layered them. They would change a little bit here, change a little bit that, there, change a little bit that thought process, change a little bit that process, change a little bit of the emotions, and then they kind of layer it. Before you know it, you're like spiraling down into like a very negative state of mind. And if you don't know how to dissect these things and process them and look at them consciously, they're going to become subconscious and you're going to be running their script without even knowing it. And you're going to be feeling a certain way, thinking a certain way, and you're not going to even know, you're just not going to be aware. And that's how a lot of disclosure people get caught because they don't pay attention to these things and they become psyop agents and they don't even know that they're actually misinforming people about certain
Mhm.
things or pushing certain agendas that are either not beneficial for people or are beneficial to these organizations. And they might not consciously know it because they don't notice this subtle changes. Like little by little, they change their view of things. They a little bit here, a little bit there, and then before you know it, it's like you have a completely different story in your mind. So, so it's very important to notice these subtle little
Right.
changes. But I think it makes me actually more credible because I'm like, look, I'm being manipulated, and this is how.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows people that I'm not a psyop, that they're trying to make me into a psyop, but I'm not one. And I'm fighting it actively, and they get to see how I'm actually doing it.
You've been there, done that, and you've got the t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Souvenir t-shirt. Oh my gosh, I just love you. You are just a delight. I really have
Thank you.
enjoyed all the information, and I would love to get you on again because you're continuing to learn, you're continuing to put all the pieces together yourself. So I know
Yes.
that you could help us out on my channel as well. So for your channel, for people that want to follow you, you're on the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds on Rumble. And you're also doing a QHHT in Hawaii. Are you doing that by Zoom also?
No, I unfortunately I only do it in person. I
Mhm.
follow Dolores Cannon's
Mhm.
recommendations. Yeah, she told us not to do it during on Zoom. It's not safe to do it.
I thank you so much. You have probably covered everything, but is there anything else that you would like to say before we get off?
Oh, there is a lot of things I would like to say. We won't have enough time for this today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And you are just, I just love your energy. And we hopefully will talk soon.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye bye.
Bye bye.